Hi, I'm Herpin Hippie, and this is my red Tegu L, and that must mean that this is L's kitchen. Alright, so maybe this isn't a cooking show about a very intense lizard head chef, but I am going to be showing you how I meal prep frozen turkey balls for my pet Tegu. Alright, so I've got Elle chilling out and taking a bath right now. So I'm just going to let her soak in here for a bit while I get to work on making her food. I'll close that because she is more than capable of making the jump up and out of that tub. Alright, so now that I've got Elle waiting in the bath, I'm going to get started on making my frozen turkey balls for her. Now this was not my idea. This is a really common way of meal prepping for all sorts of animals that need a kind of complex diet and takes a little bit too much time for you to do on a regular daily basis. And this is just a way that when you get a little bit of time, you can make one real big batch of Tegu food, skink food, dog food, whatever it is that you happen to be feeding. Of course, depending on what animal you're feeding, make sure that you're putting the right ingredients into it that are safe for them to eat and the right amounts for them to eat. This video is going to be showing you how I prep food for my Tegu, so if you're feeding anything other than an Argentine Tegu, then make sure that you look up exactly what you should be putting into food. But this is an easy way to meal prep for any animal that has a complex diet that's hard to keep up with on a daily basis. So with that, I scoped out a few things in the fridge already that will go into Elle's food today. I've got some grapes, it's just kind of the last of the package here, and that's alright because you don't need a whole bunch of grapes or a whole bunch of any fruit for that matter. Tegus are omnivores, they do like fruit and veggies, but fruit is kind of the thing you give them the smallest amount and meat in the biggest amount. But this will make her excited to eat it, so it's going in. Alright, next up we've got some fridge pom-poms, or I guess it's called cilantro. But to be honest with you, we get more of this than we ever use. We have one of those meal subscription boxes, and we like a little bit of cilantro in our food, but we don't go to this much a week. So having a Tegu that is able to eat cilantro is kind of helpful because she eats what we don't. Next up, you got carrots. With carrots, this is perfectly fine for Tegus to eat, the tops and the bottoms. The only thing is, do your dogs like carrots? Is this a normal thing? Our dog absolutely loves carrots. She came running over as soon as she heard the bag. And there she goes to eat it on the carpet. That's alright. You put up with all the reptiles, you deserve it. Get this situated again. Hopefully ow, that hurt. Hit my heel on the fridge. Hit my heel on the fridge. Alright, hopefully I didn't mess up the framing too much giving our dog a carrot, but what I was going to say about carrots is they're good for Tegus. They can eat the tops of them, they can eat the bottoms of them, but of course you don't want to give them anything they're going to choke on, so if you do put carrot in your Tegus food, I like to slice it really thin, really small, kind of put it in there more for color and just another texture in the food for them to eat, but it is good for them, and if it's what you've got in your fridge, it'll work. Next up, and we got some more variety in the food. We got some sweet peppers here. I'll give her some more color, just another vegetable, some more micronutrients for her diet. So that's it for the fruit and vegetables that will actually be going into the frozen Tegu balls. That's something that you can also just add to the food afterwards, since it doesn't really take a lot of prep to cut some lettuce, and it's easier to keep it fresh that way. But this is the fruit and produce that's going to be going into the actual frozen Tegu balls. Alright, so here's the turkey. This is going to be the main protein source in these Tegu balls. There is going to be one other secret ingredient protein source, but I'm going to keep it in the fridge a little bit longer so it doesn't get away from me. But the turkey is going to be the main protein, so now I'm going to go ahead and chop up all the produce so it's small enough that it will be safe for my Tegu to eat, and then I'll mix it together with the protein and unveil the secret ingredient, and hopefully I don't lose too many of you clicking away because it's gross. So again, with the carrots, you just want to make sure that you're real careful that you keep it small. A good rule of thumb for any whole prey items or tough to chew items is you really don't want to go any bigger than your Tegu's skull, and in some cases, like with carrots where it's a really hard item, I like to go with keeping them at least smaller than the size of the space between your reptile's eyes. That is, if you're watching this to feed a reptile, I'm assuming most of you here are. So I'm going to chop this all again, just a little bit smaller, get it down to an absolutely safe size for my Tegu to eat. I am going to get roasted in the comment section for how I'm chopping these. I'm a former venomous snake keeper. I don't know how to chop carrots, but this works well enough for my Tegu, so I guess you guys can laugh at me in the comments. But this is perfectly fine for Elle's purposes. All right, and now with all those carrots chopped, I'm gonna go ahead and add them to the bowl. That'd be a little bit more than I wanted, so I might have a happy dog after this. She might get some extra carrot in her food. You don't mind that, do you, Jada? No, I didn't think so. I guess I gotta give her something now. I'm sorry for teasing you. There you go. Good girl. Good. Oh, good girl. And next I'm adding in some of those sweet peppers. With these, the only thing you really gotta look out for, and it's not that bad if you're using sweet peppers instead of something like bell peppers, is just the seeds inside of them. Like these aren't really that bad. There's barely any seeds in there. Some bell peppers are really loaded, so if you get a pepper that has more seeds, the seeds really aren't good for your reptiles. So you can cut around those, cut them out, get rid of them, make sure they're not on the cutting board so you don't accidentally scrape them into the bowl later. This is just adding a little bit more variety into the turkey balls. Tegu balls or turkey balls? Either one sounds a little off. You know what I mean? I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments what you think these should be called. Oh, got a little seed in there. Get out of here. Yeah, that's right. And these are softer than the carrots, so I'm not really worried nearly as much about cutting them as small. This should be fine. And into the bowl. All right, next we're gonna get some of the greens. And these aren't the best quality greens that I give my Tegu. Those I like to give fresh since I don't need to worry about freezing them. I can just chop them up the day of. But I'm gonna go through and cut off just a little bit of these. These are starting to get wilty and past the point where we're gonna use them. Give that a little mix, show you how it's coming along. Got a good bunch of variety in there. All right, the cooking area is getting messy now. Gonna add some grapes on here. Now these are pretty much a safe size to go in as is, but I don't have that many and I want to get it mixed as evenly as possible through all the portions. So I'm going to cut them up just a little bit to make sure that they are nice and easy for her to get. And I'll leave a few of those grapes out because Elle does seem to enjoy chasing them around and it's kind of a good fun food to play with. So I'll save some for her. Chop these probably down the middle, then once more if I can catch them all again without chopping my own finger up. All right, and for the size of my Tegu, that looks good, so add that into the bowl. Oh, runaway grape. I'm sorry, doggo, I can't give you the grapes. Those are poisonous to you. She said bring it. No. Alright, so with that, I'm going to give it a quick stir to make sure it's all mixed together, and then it will be ready for me to add the protein to it. But it has been a little bit of time since I started prepping Elle's food though, and I like to go check on her just since I left her in a bath. I like to make sure she isn't getting into trouble or falling asleep with her nose under the water. Silly stuff like that sounds ridiculous, but it happens. I've had friends who have literally had tegus or other lizards die because they fell asleep and water was just a little bit above their nostril and they drowned because they got too comfortable in their bath. So with that positive thought, let's go check on how Elle's doing. And anybody who's concerned, like, oh my god, why would you leave her unattended? Well, don't worry. We've got about a fingernail depth of water. But anyway, she's doing well. Bathwater's looking a little gross. Nasty lizard. Sorry to disturb you. I will close this up. We're almost done with prepping her food. And then I'll come back for her. Alright, so back at Elle's kitchen. Oh, that's right, I forgot we weren't doing that bit. I needed a little more space, so I'm going to use this to-go container, and this will be perfect for me to store the Tegu balls when I'm done anyway, so I don't need to worry about having extra dishes. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and just mix this up with my hands. It feels a little gross, but it's just a good way to make sure I'm really getting a good mixture of all the ingredients together. And this would also be the ideal time to add any calcium or other vitamin supplements to the blend while you're mixing it up. You really want to make sure that it is blended well. That way, you know, with every serving, your Tegu's getting roughly the same nutrients, the same protein, the same vitamins, and it's not hugely different from meal to meal if you don't mix well and one of the balls ends up being almost all turkey or one's almost all grapes or one God forbid, is almost all cilantro. She would hate that. Just mixing it real well, make sure that it's good and varied. And I'm just gonna give her a good mixture of everything she needs. Kind of swap handfuls here so I've got enough room in both. And I still need to add that secret ingredient, so that's part of why I'm needing the second bowl here. I don't know why I'm pressing it down like I'm about to make a Tegu meatloaf. I don't know, I cook the eggs a little bit for E. coli risk, a little bit for the risk of an enzyme in raw eggs. That isn't the best thing in the world for Tegu scale and skin development and health. So I like cooking eggs. I usually leave the meat raw, but this does make me wonder, for a once-off special occasion thing, I wonder if Tegu meatloaf would be an okay option. I would probably keep it on the rare side so I don't destroy too many of the nutrients for Elle. Alright, that is everything except for the secret ingredient. Alright, so with our delicious Tegu paste ready, it's time to add that secret ingredient I've been talking about, which is actually going to be super worms today. It's not always super worms, but I do like to always add some sort of insect protein and insects to the mix, because in the wild, Tegus aren't just hunting mammals and birds and things with meat protein. They also eat a lot of bugs, a lot of insects, so I'm making sure that I get a little bit of insect protein in these turkey balls. So with that, I'm going to go through here and start picking out some of these worms to add to it. And this is the tip. This just took a turn to sounding like the most screwed up cooking show ever. Like I, of course, was aware this whole time it kind of felt like a cooking show filming this. I made the joke about Elle's Kitchen, all that. But I was just going to say a helpful tip is putting your mealworms in the fridge before you cook with them so they don't go scurrying away. Sounds like a joke, but it is serious. If you're doing this and you do want to put insects into whatever sort of protein balls you're making for whatever animal you're feeding, if those insects are alive, they run away a lot faster when they're warm than when they're cold. So chilling your mealworms in the fridge for 20 minutes before preparing your turkey balls is the ideal way to make your mealworm turkey ball surprise. I lost it. Anyway, I'm going to keep adding these before they warm up. Some of them are starting to squirm around a little bit. This is also the reason I don't use any, I don't know, my girlfriend's almost home, just saw her car around the corner. But it's alright because I didn't use the bowl. I didn't use the bowl that we use. I'm stuck to using the Chinese takeout for adding worms to the turkey balls, so we won't be in trouble if that door opens in a second. And I've got to say, if this isn't looking delicious to you, you must not be a Tegu. Alright, that should be enough. Got some for flavor. I do have a gecko that will be eating the rest of those, so I don't want to go using up all the super worms. But now I'm going to just mix those worms into those balls. Again, you want to make sure that this is as well mixed as possible. You want to make sure every serving is as close to the same for your Tegu, but that should be a pretty decent mix now. To tell you the truth, that one's trying to escape. To tell you the truth, I don't know how much of this mixing might have just killed the worms in it and of itself, but that should be plenty mixed. So now I'm going to add it back to this bowl, and then I'm going to roll it up into the individual servings for the Tegu. Start making my first serving, and usually what I use as a rule of thumb for the size you should be making these is about the size of your animal's head. I feel so gross. So right there is about the size that you're shooting for.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Cool.
Making some turkey Tegu balls. Can I get that face? Can I get that face on tape?
The worms.
The worst? What are you talking about?
Worms.
I saw your car coming.
Those look so normal.
Yeah, don't get them mixed up with the veggie falafel balls in there.
What happened to my poor pup? Oh. Meatballs should not be moving.
Meatballs should not be moving. She obviously isn't a Tegu. Alright, I'm starting to work fast because a few of these worms are starting to get away. And I don't really have enough for that last ball. It's not going to stick together. So I'm just going to kind of shove it in the spaces in between and on the bottom there. And that will be the bonus crumbs when I get to the very last serving of these frozen balls. So I'm going to kind of push them into their corners, help give them a little bit more shape one last time. That way it'll be easier to split them apart when I need to for feeding purposes. But with that, I've got 7 servings of Tegu balls ready to go. And I don't feed her every day at this age. She is an older Tegu, she isn't growing as much, and Tegus are really prone to obesity. But before these guys get any warmer and try to crawl out of the balls before they've fully formed, I'm just gonna throw this in the freezer, just in case. I don't think any of the worms could get away. I'm gonna slap a lid on there to minimize the grossness factor as much as possible. All right. Slide them on into the freezer, and that will keep me covered for food. So it was pretty late by the time I finished making the Tegu balls, so we'll leave those in the freezer to harden overnight, and then we'll come back in the morning and check in to see if my turkey Tegu balls live up to L's standards. And just a piece of advice that I forgot to follow. Normally when I'm planning on using these meal prepped turkey balls, I like to remove the one that I'm planning on feeding the next day from the freezer the night before. I'll put it in the refrigerator, that way it can just slowly defrost overnight and it's a little bit quicker for when I do need it. But I'll still go through here and pick out one of these balls. These all came out looking fantastic, and this is sounding like a screwed up cooking show again. But as you can see, when they're frozen like this, they just break right apart, and then this is what I would put in the refrigerator the night before under ideal circumstances. But I'll just leave it out on the table now and keep an eye on it while it defrosts. And then once it's all up to room temperature, I'll offer it to my Tegu. And just a word of caution, if you are leaving out the turkey balls and waiting for them to defrost, pay close attention to when it does begin to defrost, because once it's defrosted, it does not take very long for bacteria to start growing. It is summer in Phoenix and we don't run our air conditioning all that high, so within about an hour it was pretty soft, and I was able to start mushing it up with a fork to make it a little bit softer and speed up the thawing process. Once the turkey ball was all mushed up, I left it to defrost a little bit while longer, and while I was waiting on that, I started chopping up some fresh kale for my Tegu's breakfast. Kale is a great leafy green to feed most reptiles, but it is kind of higher in oxalates, which can cause problems for reptiles that eat too much of it. And because I didn't feel like washing the cutting board again, I decided to use the kitchen scissors to quickly chop up that kale. And I actually got distracted during the filming process and forgot to add the vitamin mix and calcium to my turkey balls, so I'm just going to do a light dusting on top now, and then I'm going to go get Elle from her morning bath, and we'll see how she likes her turkey Tegu balls. Hey Elle, I've got a surprise for you. So I'm picking her up real carefully, doing my best to make sure that she feels supported. Sometimes lizards get a little nervous when they get picked up, so the more you can be under their belly and kind of support their legs, usually the more comfortable they feel with being picked up. Alright, you want to go under there, and that's okay, because I'm pretty sure I've got something that's going to make you want to come back over. Oh, she's going to go under the oven, don't you dare. Have to block her off. So now I am between her and the oven, and I think I stand a chance of getting her attention back on her food. There she goes, she's going after it. Now I'll just try to get her into some better lighting so we can get a good view of her while we see how she likes this batch of Tegu balls. Alright, this is a pretty good start. She's going for it. She followed the plate to the new location, and I think right here she noticed the calcium powder and she didn't really care for it. Yep, she's sticking her tongue out. That's why it's better to mix any vitamins or calcium powder into the actual Tegu food mix. That way it doesn't stand out quite as much to them as this calcium powder obviously did to Elle, but it looked like it wasn't enough to keep her from eating. It might have just caught her off guard a little bit because she went right back to eating her breakfast. Well, I still think I lost some points for adding the calcium powder on top and forgetting to incorporate it into my turkey ball, but by the way she looks here, I think Chef Elle is gonna forgive me. And when it looked like she had had all she wanted and she went back under the table, I thought she was done eating for the morning, but then she got back up and she decided to come back over and have some seconds. So I'll count this as a success. She loved her turkey Tegu balls, and I love having an easy backup plan for feeding my animals when life gets busy. That way I never have to worry about their diet suffering because I didn't have time to prepare something fully. This is something that I can easily pull out of the refrigerator the night before, let defrost overnight, and then have it to pull out of the fridge an hour before I need to feed her. That way I always have a great, fast source of nutrition for Elle. And now it looks like she has had her fill for the day, so I think that does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you especially for making it all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It helps out more than you can know in making the algorithm actually recommend these videos so more people can see them. So by liking this video, you can help this information reach more people. And if you have any questions about the process or about things you could do differently, please let me know down in the comments. I do my best to respond to as many YouTube comments as possible. And with that, thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. I hope your Tegu doesn't disappear under your oven and that none of your cooking ingredients try to escape from you. But most of all, I hope that you keep herping.